Now we will get into the, consider the resolution to approve the submission of the proposal to elections on November 8th and approve ballot language for proposal of the renewal of the safety path. And we're going to have that presented by Clerk Brooke.
Okay, there's not really much more to add. You may recall, and as Trustee Shostak mentioned, on March 28th, 2022, we had a study session where the fiscal challenges of the senior center and all the other millages were discussed. The specific amounts that are in this millage renewal proposal you see before you are the same numbers that were discussed and presented at that study session. They've been out there now for months, that's what's being asked for the first one here we're talking about is a safety path, which is a 5-year strict plain old renewal. The language here, if we had passed this, will be sent to the county. The deadline is, I think, a week from tomorrow.
August 16th.
August 16th. So this is our last chance to get anything on the, as far as a regular scheduled board meeting, to get anything on the ballot for November.
And then, did you want to go in? I know some of us, I didn't know this until getting involved, that we don't actually get to write the ballot language. It's actually determined by statutes. Do you want to cover? Because I think
Well,
some think that we wrote the...
Yeah, there's a certain amount of drafting involved. I drafted, but I drafted specifically to comply with MCL 211.24F, which has specific requirements of things that have to be in there. People read it and say, oh, there's got to be a simpler way of saying it.
I wish.
But I wish, exactly. The fact of the matter is there's essentially a checklist of items that you have to make sure are in the ballot language. So while it looks complicated, it needs to be that way in order to comply with what the statute requires. So while I draft it, I'm drafting it with an eye on making sure we comply with the statute. So.
Now to your point, now let the discussions and debate start. Neil?
Thank you. I just want to say I think the safety paths are a major asset to the community. When I moved into Bloomfield Township, there were no safety paths. And to see how they have developed over the years and how there's been certainly people on the east side and the west side who come to us requesting that they have safety paths, and how we've certainly made an effort that there's connectivity is really something that has brought the community together. And also it's nice to see it connects to some of the surrounding communities. It's been an asset not only for seniors, as we've discussed, which is very important, but also it's something that's very attractive to bringing younger families in. I use the safety paths all the time, and see younger families with their children, see seniors just walking, and so it's just a much safer way to get exercise and not having them. So I'm very much in favor of them, always been very supportive, and I think that I'm certainly in favor of the language that we put this on the ballot.
Any questions or comments?
Well, I'd like to echo that. I completely agree. The safety paths are widely used. They were great. You know, I am so glad that a board all these years ago decided to go ahead and invest in safety paths. You know, we live at a park-like setting, but we don't have any parks. In my mind, the safety paths really play a park-like role for us. And the master plan for safety paths is not yet done. There's more to build. Of course, they need to be maintained and repaired, and we have to have ADA compliance. And so I fully support the idea of renewing the safety path millage and continuing to enhance our community with this investment.
I've always been very pro-safety path. We've lived here since before they started. And in fact, we moved into dirt roads, and I found out how much fun it wasn't to push a stroller on dirt roads, and became my road paving chair. So we went from dirt roads, which made it kind of horrible, and kids riding bikes on dirt's not fun. We paved our roads, and then the safety path program came, and I've always been a supporter as a resident. Olivia knows I have a beeline to Olivia, and I'm like, oh, there's a heaved place here, and oh, there's a stick sticking way out in the middle. It's going to hit somebody. The response has been wonderful whenever I've reported an issue. We walk them all the time, 4 or 5 days a week at least, in different directions, and I think it's just a wonderful asset for families, for bikers, for just, it's a really simple, quick way to get some exercise. And when you get beyond your own subdivision safely, not having to walk in streets. And it does connect us everywhere. So I'm a supporter.
Just going to add, when we first moved in and we had children, it was before the safety paths, and I remember pushing my daughter down Pickering, which is still, you have to do in the street, but then in a stroller along Franklin Road to get to the cider mill, which wasn't the greatest thing in the shoulder. It wasn't easy to push, and it wasn't too safe to do. Jan Roncelli pushed and promoted safety paths and got them on the ballot and got them to be, to start with. And I can now say that I'm blessed with grandchildren and walk with my daughter, who I was once, pushing in a stroller with her children, and now can do it very safely on the safety path. And again, just to think that we do have, people traversing, it's not just within a neighborhood, but around the community, and these allow us to do that and really do make us, I think, a much stronger community. It gets people from subdivision to subdivision, from subdivision to shopping center, to school, to the cider mill, to all kinds of different things. So I strongly support this, and I'll make a motion to put it on the ballot as submitted.
Is there anyone else that needs to speak?
Well, we can do discussion after the motion.
Okay. So motion by Treasurer Keeps, support by Trustee Barnett.
Can we get discussion?
Yep.
Do you want to say anything?
You go ahead.
Okay. So I'm markedly less sanguine about the safety paths than my colleagues. I agree they're an important asset. I think that they can be helpful, and obviously during the pandemic they were used widely, much more so than we had ever anticipated. Where I come in is, we have to be discerning in how we spend our money. I was supportive of the now passed millage renewal and increase for public safety. I listened to the case made by our chiefs and agreed with them that it merited an increase of taxpayer dollars. I'm a little less supportive of these in terms of the safety path. I was hoping that we wouldn't be able to renew it and we could just fold it into the road or something else and just maintain it over time. Obviously, with the ADA compliance issue, that's something that we have to do. And so we have to do it. So I will support this 5-year renewal, but I would like to, spend more time working with staff and administration on maybe curtailing it so that it's not renewed in 5 years. But I think that we have other things that we can prioritize. So that's where I come out.
Trustee Keith, did you have anything?
I share what everybody on the board has said as far as the importance of them, but I also do agree with Trustee Shostak that it is going to be important for us to revisit a master plan for the township so we can really start to see what our residents are going to prioritize going into the future.
And just from my point, I live in the area where it was one of the original ones, so you are correct, Jan was a proponent of this in the beginning, because I used to come to all those meetings, because at first they were even thinking sidewalks. And I know with a sister who lived in a city that lawsuits were prevalent when somebody slipped on their sidewalk. I was very happy to see that safety paths were a thing, so the residents aren't liable. And I can tell you in 20 years, I have met a lot of people from them walking in front of my house and all of that. My mother benefits from it in that she can't move very much, so she can talk to people from the porch. The one thing I would would like to see in the future is that as we're done building out, as the ADA is done, is to curtail it into an operational, a much smaller one. The one thing when you have infrastructure, though, is you have to maintain it, not just for the fact that it's our duty, but also there are legal ramifications. And we did look at the cost of ripping up 70 miles of safety path, and I guarantee you there are quite a few millages that pay out. But if we could eventually get it down to the point where it's just maintaining, and then I know they're very happy and successful because we get other communities around us begging us to talk to their people, especially our Timbit donut hole of Bloomfield Hills. They're constantly asking us to reach out to their people and beg them to connect because they don't enjoy that they have to walk in the township, not the hills. But as somebody who's lived with them for 20 years, I know there's a lot of people who are fearful when they come to their area. They're amazing. People do not steal your stuff. It is really helpful, and it does build communities. And for sure during COVID, it was amazing to be able to leave your home and safely walk in your area and know that that you were okay during that time. So thank you to those who came up with the idea 20-some years ago. But yeah, hopefully in the future, as you mentioned, that it wouldn't be as large as it is and we could kind of curtail it back and just, my biggest fear is it going into the general fund, it having to be cut some year, and now we're facing lawsuits because we're not maintaining our own infrastructure. That's just a long-term planner's view of the long term.
You made a good point, too. I just want to mention that, you know, that you recall there were discussions about having a lower number.
Yeah.
And it just didn't work from a budget standpoint and the obligations that we have under the ADA and the continuation of the maintenance and then the continued build out of the master plan. I mean, so there was some thought that, you know, maybe this should be lower, and why isn't it lower? And we pushed on those issues. It wasn't just some number out of thin air. So in the end, to continue the goals of the plan and implement the master plan and repair and improve from ADA perspective, this was sort of the number that was settled upon as necessary. And Olivia's materials present very well exactly why this money is needed. And so I just wanted to mention that too. I mean, we did all sit around and try to think of maybe we could do a lower number, but it wasn't really in the cards if we wanted to stay true to the purpose and plan for why these were presented to begin with.
Is there any other discussion? If not, I'd look for a vote. Do we have to do a roll call on a ballot language?
You should,
Yeah. Roll call votes. Those are you.
Okay. Trustee Faki,
Yes.
Trustee Shostak,
Yes.
Treasurer Keeps,
Yes.
Trustee Barnett,
Yes.
Trustee Murray.
Yes.
I'm a yes as well,
Yes.
Supervisor. That passes 7-0.